Welcome to the Modern Homesteading Podcast.
We have allowed ourselves to become so disconnected and ignorant about something that is as intimate as the food that we eat.
Be prepared to grow your own for victory.
God said, I need somebody strong enough to clear trees and heave bales, yet gentle enough to yean lambs and wean pigs and tend the pink-combed pullets who will stop his mower for an hour to splint the broken leg of a meadowlark. So God made a farmer.
Hey folks, welcome to the Modern Homesteading Podcast. I'm your host, Harold Thornbrough from smalltownhomestead.com, and today is day 20 of our 30 days of homesteading Q&A, where we've been answering your questions about homesteading by featuring one question per episode and providing an in-depth answer to your question. Today's question is, I'm going to start raising rabbits for meat, but I'm trying to decide if I should raise them in cages or in a colony. Which is better? Well, first of all, I just want to say congratulations on choosing rabbits for meat. I think that they're definitely one of the best choices you could make. For what they take, the input that goes into them, and what you get from them, the amount of meat you get from them, it's just amazing. Not to even mention the benefit of their manure for your garden and things like that. So, yeah, it's a great animal to choose to raise. And it's an important question if you're going to raise them in cages or in a colony. So, what I'll do is I just want to discuss, some advantages and disadvantages to a colony and cages and let you make your own choice. I think that both are a way you can go that's, I won't say that one's right, one's wrong, but there are some advantages to each. Let's talk first about raising rabbits in a colony. Here's some benefits, some advantages. It's easier to clean. When you have to clean each individual cage, it can take a lot longer. You have a big area, especially if you're doing a deep mulch setup, it's a lot easier to do cleanup. You don't have to clean out the pen near as often. Urine gets soaked into the ground. If you got good drainage, that is. If you got the right kind of setup, cleaning is just so much simpler. Feeding and watering is easier. You can usually just feed in a couple different places. I try to spread it out just to keep the rabbits from fighting over food. But you don't have to go to each individual cage, put a water bottle, and put food in there. And it's a lot more work. There's a lot less time involved in it. One of the biggest advantages, I think, to colony raising is the rabbits are just happier. Rabbits get to be rabbits. I mean, they dig and they jump and they play and they spend time with each other. They'll even groom each other. I mean, you get to see rabbits being rabbits, which I think is one of the biggest benefits. Another huge benefit, especially in your situation where you're just getting started, is it's a cheaper initial setup cost. I mean, you're building a pen, you're putting them in it, and buying or building cages can be expensive. And also, you have to buy the bottles and the feeders for each individual cage, and so it can be expensive to have several cages set up. So, definitely a colony system can save you some money. Overall, it's really less personal one-on-one care with the rabbits, which means less time involved. And what I mean by that is, you just don't have to really go in and spend, do things for each individual rabbit. They're kind of living in a system that's their own setup. They do what they're going to do, and you just don't have to give them a lot of attention, which can bring some of the disadvantages also of colony raising. Because you're not giving them as much attention, rabbits become more skittish. They act more like wild rabbits. This can make catching the rabbits a bit of a challenge when it's time to separate them and put them in a growout pen or something like that. Also, there's of course, there's no possibility of them getting in a fight when you got them in separate cages, and when you got them together, there's possibility of a fight and one getting hurt. It does happen. With mine, honestly, I've been doing it for about a year in the colony, and I've never witnessed any of them fighting. That's with one buck. I'll have younger bucks, like 12, 13 weeks and younger, but I usually take them and put them in growout after that, so then they don't fight. One of the worst things I've found is they're more susceptible to disease, like coccidiosis, and also just the spread of illness in general. I mean, you got rabbits that are they're around each other. So if one's sick, there's a possibility of spreading that illness to the others. So that's a definite negative. I have had to deal with coccidiosis, and there is medicine you can put in their water to help with that, but it's something they catch from the ground. So it's a possibility as well. A colony pen will take up more space on your property. So if you're limited for space, it may not be a good way to go. So those are just some advantages and disadvantages to colony raising rabbits. Basically everything in the advantages and disadvantages is totally opposite when it comes to raising rabbits in cages. I mean, yeah, it's more work to clean them. It's more work to feed and water them. I mean, the rabbits are less happy. There is a lot of cost, but your rabbits are going to be more tame. You're going to have hands-on time with them every day. They're going to be easier to handle. No challenging catching them. You're going to have absolute control over their breeding, and that's one of the big disadvantages with colony raising your rabbits is unrestrained breeding. They're going to mate when they feel like mating, and you're not going to be able to control when you're having rabbits and how many of your does are pregnant. In cages, you can have total control over that. You put the doe in the buck's cage when you're ready for her to mate, and then 30 days later you're going to have some baby rabbits. So it's just a lot more control with the cages. So, and then again, the spread of illness and catching disease and things like that are reduced in cages. And you can do it in a fairly small area. I mean, there's people who have systems set up in their garage, and it just takes up a wall in a garage, basically. So, I mean, cages can definitely be a bonus depending on your situation. So you just have to take in that account. You have to assess your situation, and you have to make a decision that's best for you and what you have. So those are just some of the advantages and disadvantages. If you do go with a colony, the setup of the colony will make all the difference. You want about 10 square feet per adult rabbit, roughly. You want to provide them a lot of jumping and playing area, plenty of places to hide. They love to get just under stuff and hide in stuff. I got some pieces of like tires that I've cut in quarter sections, and they love to get inside those and just get away from everybody. You want to protect your rabbits from the weather and from predators, so you want to have fencing over the top of the pen. You want to have places for them to get out of the rain or something like that, out of the cold, out of the wind. And, rabbits will dig holes, too, if you let them. So if you don't want them to dig holes in your yard or in the pen, you have to fence the bottom of the pen. It's not that hard just to roll out some fencing on the bottom of the pen and then, put your deep mulch over the top of that, and they'll play in that and everything. But if they do dig, they'll just do it in between the holes in the fencing, and they won't be able to get out. Again, providing a deep litter setup is probably the best way to keep your colony pen clean. And again, and I said this earlier, you want to provide a few locations for feeding to reduce the fighting. If you feed them in 2 or 3 different places, they can kind of separate a little bit when they're eating, and they won't be less of a chance of them getting in a fight over the food. Provide a lot of nesting places and materials for the does. I actually didn't care if mine dug holes, so they actually burrowed down and made some actual burrows where they had their babies. And, again, you don't know how many they have. You can't see things as well. I just see babies coming to the food bowl one day, It's like, well, didn't even know I had any, but there they are. But it's kind of neat. I like that. I like to see them in their natural environment and kind of doing what rabbits do. And I would say that you would include a buck in your colony, but have a place where you can take him and separate him for a while if you need to. If you're just having too many babies, you might need to get him out of there. And if you even have a couple bucks, there's a chance of them fighting. So at least have one. If you have two, you might have to separate one for a while. And have your grow-out cage ready. Be prepared for that because, you're going to need to separate those kits at about 12 weeks or so and then finish growing them out. So, have a place where you can get them out of there, and put them someplace else. It comes up on you pretty fast, so you'll need to have that ready. So there's just a few ideas if you do go with a colony, and I think it's a great way to go. I've done both. Matter of fact, I'm in the process of switching back to cages right now because I'm taking their pen and I'm putting some quail in there for a while. So I'm going to be putting them back in the cages for a while. But I like the colony. There's a lot of benefits to it. Just some resources I want to tell you about for raising meat rabbits. Go into Facebook and join the Backyard Meat Rabbits group. And there's also another group called Rabbits in Colonies. Two really good groups with lots of information. So I would encourage you to go and join those two Facebook groups. I'll put links to those two in the show notes. If you want to find the show notes for this episode, go to smalltownhomestead.com/meatrabbits. And all that information will be in there. I'll have a list, actually, of the advantages and disadvantages of the colony raising, and the suggestions for setting up a colony, and those links to those Facebook groups. So I hope that helps, and I hope you'll join us in a couple days or a few days. I've been spreading these out a little bit more as the holidays have been going on. I haven't been doing them every couple days like I was for a while. Between Thanksgiving and Christmas and then New Year's, people are busy. There's a lot going on. So we'll be back with you here in a few days. And until then, happy homesteading. God bless.
Thanks for listening. To see the show notes for this podcast or listen to other podcast episodes, go to smalltownhomestead.com. There you can also read our blog, connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+, and take advantage of the many resources we make available to help you along in your homesteading journey. Please share this podcast and help us to carry out our mission of helping others to homestead today for a better tomorrow.